It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Oh, hey, ha, 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 ha. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? If you noticed any strange kind of electrical energy floating around your head today, or perhaps you had some very unusual dreams last night, it might be because of my guest who is coming up. Not to say that she would influence your dreams, but she has a way of kind of connecting with the supernatural, if you will, your spirit guides, people who have passed. She has the ability. Psychic and medium Lorna Adams will be here in just a little bit. And I have to admit that I was a bit skeptical at first, but after talking to Lorna, I'm less skeptical. I think is probably the best way to put it. I've always had an open mind about dreams because I never know where that comes from and what that's all about. As in the interview, we talk about dreams, and I've always had very vivid dreams. So she helped kind of to explain that, and, well, it was quite an interesting interview. I really came away from it thinking that, there could be something to all of this. I don't know. But before we get to Lorna, I want to play another song by a new band that I just recently discovered called False Solution. They're 4 young lads from Belfast, Ireland, and really a great, straightforward rock and roll band, which is what I've always liked. The members are Jim Malone on vocals and guitar, Michael Robinson on guitar, Jack Krangle on bass, and Emon Scott on drums. They've only been together since 2015, which is amazing. Late 2015. So only just a few months. They've already put out an EP. The EP is called Head in the Sand. And the track that we're going to play for you today is called Make It Big. So here is False Solutions and Make It Big.
Shitty, couldn't find an easy way.
Okay, wow, another great song. Love these guys. We will be right back with Lorna Adams after these commercial messages. Hey there, this is Douglas Coleman, host of the Douglas Coleman Radio Show. I wanted to let you know that we are now offering advertising slots on our show for just $5. Yes, you heard it right, just $5. That's cheaper than a McDonald's meal, and it's better for you too. I will mention your website and product on our show, or for just $10, I will play your pre-recorded ad up to 30 seconds in length. We are now an internationally syndicated show with listeners from all over the world. This is a great and inexpensive opportunity to gain some exposure for you and your product or brand, and your ad won't just play once. It will become a permanent part of the show, which will archive on YouTube, Mixcloud, and on Spreaker. So why not do it now to get the exposure you deserve?
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him, flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
Bondi Guest House in Jomtien Beach, Pattaya, Thailand. And their guest house offers beachfront accommodations with all rooms having sea views. Some rooms have balconies overlooking the sea as well. The Jomtien nightlife is within an easy stroll, and the beach is right outside your door. The attractions of Pattaya City nightlife are also just a few minutes ride away. Food is available 24 hours and offer a selection of European and Thai food. The owners, Colin and Malcolm, look forward to welcoming you to the Bondi. For more information, email Colin at bondipattaya, BONDIPATTAYA, at yahoo.co.uk. And if you do contact them, please mention that you heard about it on the Douglas Coleman Show.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. You know, all you got to do is get in touch with me on eppsmusicproductions.com. That's EWPSproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me this spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
Hey there, this is Douglas Coleman, host of the Douglas Coleman Radio Show. I support the University of North Dakota's music therapy program.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
She has been communicating with her spirit guides since she was a teenager. She communicated with them for so many years, and it was the preparation for the work she does today, offering psychic readings and connecting to those who have passed. Before a client arrives for a reading, she does a short prayer and meditation. This allows her to connect with her client and their energy and those in their lives even before the client arrives. It is during this time that the client's spirit guides will suggest a few topics we can discuss during the session. It is also very common for loved ones to make themselves known to her before the clients even arrive. Many times, spirits will offer answers even before the client has the chance to ask the question. Not only does she hear spirit guides and those who have passed, but many times they speak to her with images and pictures. In this case, a picture really is worth 1,000 words. Her desire is to assist those who come to her to find more peace in their lives, more joy, and a deeper understanding of life's lessons. Okay, please welcome Lorna Adams. Hi, Lorna. How are you?
Hi, Douglas. I'm great. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I always have been fascinated by psychic phenomenon and, the mystical other sides, but I have to admit that I am a bit skeptical. I tend to be one of these people that believe in science over, faith, perhaps. Not that I'm closed-minded about it. I am open-minded to it because of a couple of things that happened in my life where I just couldn't explain how this particular thing happened. And so it's left me in a position of, well, I don't know. That's kind of where I am with it. So maybe you can shed some light on some of this for me. I would be greatly appreciated. I'm sure my listeners would enjoy it. But the first thing I did want to ask is, how did you realize that you had a particular gift or a power to do this?
Well, it came slowly, kind of in blips and blaps when I was about 14. I don't know if you know what automatic writing is. In case you don't, it's described often as writing without conscious thought. And so what you're doing with automatic writing, and actually anybody can do it, is you're tapping into another dimension. And this dimension is sometimes the other side. This is the dimension where spirit guides are, angels, guardian angels, and we easily access that particular dimension, especially in our sleep. So when I was 14, my guides would wake me up with very definite sentences and certain ideas. And so I would say, okay, all right, I'll write it down. And then in the morning, I tried to read it, my chicken scratch. And that's slowly how the process started. I had a friend of the family. She was like a grandmother to me. And she had been doing automatic writing since the 1950s. So she was really my mentor and such a wonderful, great lady. And soon the sentences became paragraphs. And then I asked him if I could use something called a typewriter because I couldn't write as fast as my guides were speaking. And so I became a really good typist. I still have notebooks of what the messages and information they had passed on to me. And they were really, at times, very complex, sort of universal law sort of information, really complex stuff. And so I would take it to my friend Anita, and I would say, what in the world is this supposed to mean? So that's really how it started. And then I realized I had the ability at 19 to speak to people who had died, who'd gone to the other side. When my sister's boyfriend, who was he was like a brother to me because I was much younger, he was killed in a motorcycle accident. And about 3 days later, he came to me just like my spirit guides had been coming to me for years. And he started talking to me. And so my way of documenting that was, typing or putting pen to paper and writing down everything he was talking about. And my sister was able to ask him questions, and he was very much present, just like when I do readings today, when people come through, they're just extremely present as I am speaking with you today.
Well, what is a spirit guide? Can you define that?
Sure. Spirit guides are with us at the very beginning of our lives as we come into this life, and they are with us as we leave the physical body. Spirit guides, I can't think of a better metaphor. I should come up with something. Their spirit guides are sort of like our best friends on the other side that help guide us, that help give us important messages. And so sometimes I describe this as a gut feeling. And I think everybody can relate to the fact maybe you've been in a place, maybe a gathering or a home or whatever, and you all of a sudden get this really strong feeling that you shouldn't be there, that this is not for you. This doesn't feel good. There's a bad vibe, whatever you want to call it. Those are your guides, tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, this is not a good idea.
Would you use the term guardian angel? I mean, is that the same thing?
No, guardian angels are very different. Angels are very, very different than spirit guides. Spirit guides, we have 7 or 8 of them at any one time. They seem to rotate in and out, they tell me. They're very different personalities. And angels, guardian angels are they're really completely different. Angels, again, for lack of a better way of describing them, are God's helpers. And angels are never take human form, nor do guardian angels. They never have, they never will. And angels are their stuff that miracles are made out of. I don't know if you've had any close calls in your life with death, car accident, or a situation where you say, I really don't know how I survived that. I shouldn't have. Angels can stop time. They can put you on the other side of the accident, and so you completely avoid the accident. So they are able to manipulate what we know as time and space.
Okay, and spirit guides don't have that ability?
No, spirit guides are, it's funny, I had a reading the other day. This is such a typical spirit guide thing. And there's this gal, and she's in this job, and, she starts, it's sort of like a process. We've all been through this too, I think. I don't know if I'm liking this job anymore. I think I've outgrown it. It doesn't feel too good. And progressively, it gets worse and worse and worse until we take some kind of action. You get to the point where spirit guides will tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I think it's time for a new job. Yeah, maybe, but gosh, it's so much work, And then they come along and they give you like an elbow and they go, hey, there's a better job waiting for you. You don't have to put up with this. And then finally they'll give you a kick in the rear and the job will be, it'll progress and become so miserable that we're finally motivated to get off the fence and get a new job. Spirit guides will do that sort of thing because spirit guides always have your highest interest, your best interest in mind for you. They're there to help you and to guide you and assist you. And they only want your highest good for you.
Now, are these guides general to everyone, or does everyone have specific ones?
Everyone has different spirit guides. And when I do psychic readings, I tap into your spirit guides. And so in preparation for a reading, I'll always do a short prayer and meditation. And then I get my steno pad out and I make a page of notes. And what I'm doing is I'm listening to what the guides are saying. And they will tell me what's going on with this person, a few, hints and some ideas to help. And if anybody on the other side wants to pop in, that's the time they'll do it. Either that or if the person, either if we're doing a phone reading, the people on the other side will come up right away. When I started to speak to you, your parents come up right away.
My parents?
I don't know. Your parents. I don't know if they're alive. It's hard to tell sometimes because energy is just energy. And so your guides start talking right away when you were talking about your parents and what a huge influence they had on your life.
Yeah, okay. They did and they didn't. Actually, their influence was what I ended up doing, not necessarily what I wanted to be doing. I really was more involved with arts and music, and that wasn't where they wanted me to go. So I ended up not going there as a result of their persuasion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But then you found you found your way back.
I found my way back 20 some years later. Yeah.
Right. Right. And so it's interesting because we're talking about two different sides of the exact same coin. You not going there, brought you all sorts of lessons and challenges that you needed. I believe that when we come into this life, we're the ones that plan our lives. We choose our parents, we choose our paths, we choose our difficulties, adversities, challenges, and everything for our soul's evolution.
Well, okay, it's an interesting concept, although I don't know that I would have chose everything that happened to me in this life. I don't have a lot of regrets, but
right.
had I had been more, how do I want to put it, less affected by what they said, I wouldn't have listened to them. I would have gone on a completely different path. But, guilt is something that they instilled, and it succeeded.
Right, but it only succeeded for a while until you overcame it.
Well, 20 years was a long time, though.
But I'll tell you this, Douglas, 50 years is a long time, and some people never get it.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
So, and so a lot of times, the guides will say, well, do you want to come back and do this over again, or do you want to get it this time around?
Well, I feel like I sort of missed the boat because, let's face it, not too many people start on a career in the entertainment industry when they're in their 40s. Usually by then you should be fairly well established, or it's time to give it up, because it really is a young man or young woman's game. And they seem to get younger and younger. I mean, at least in terms of music, they're signing Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber and all the mega stars now were signed at 15 years old, which is crazy, Not to say they weren't talented, but I'm just saying that that's incredibly young to be signed to a major label, to all of a sudden be rocketed to stardom. And Taylor has done all right. Justin, on the other hand, has had some problems becoming socialized, now that he's some big superstar. But my point being is that, yes, I did manage to get back to it, but it wasn't out of any encouragement from my parents. This was just something that I did on my own after 20 years of working in corporate America. I said, enough is enough. I've got to get back, because it was calling me. Now, if you want to say that was my spirit guides, okay, I could believe that. But the longer I stayed working at the real job, the more I missed doing my music. And then the radio show came out of the music. So this was something that got started back in June. It sort of evolved. I mean, one thing has led to another. And I'm happy to be living this life now rather than getting up every morning and going to work. But it did take a while to get to it.
Well, when I say that, we chose our parents, I'm not saying, that, it's just so happy and sweet, because I can tell you with the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've spoken to over the years, if not thousands, I can say so extremely few of those people have had happy families. They're full of dysfunction. They're full of, alcoholics and drug addicts and really difficult people, awful people. And our families that we choose tend to be 9.5 times out of 10 the most difficult, challenging people that we will ever encounter. It seems to be our family. But those are the biggest lessons that we come in to learn, is my beliefs. I won't even tell you about my family. I mean, it's like you look up dysfunction and they're like in the dictionary, I mean, so I don't mean to imply that we just, cherry pick this just sweet, wonderful world, And the other thing they want to tell you when you're talking about limitations as far as age, the only limitations that there are the ones that you, any of us as human beings, put on any situation. any kind of ceiling or limitation. That comes from us. That doesn't come from anywhere else. There are no limitations. I think opportunities are like buses. There's another one coming every 7 minutes. I've never believed that there is once in a lifetime opportunity. In my world, there's absolutely no such thing. And that's how I've lived my entire life. And I've not always done this as a career. I had 2 other very successful careers that everybody said, you're insane. You can't do that. And I said, la-di-da, I'm doing it. So very much like you, what you've done, and you say 40 years old, and the guides go, well, Douglas, better than 60,
Well, good point. And I appreciate that about the opportunity as a bus every 7 minutes. I like that. Because it is true. You do set your own limitations. It's me that's saying I'm too old to be doing this. I didn't hear anyone else particularly tell me that, but I took that from the general consensus of who's out there and who's big. The people that are my age or older were already established when they were in their 20s. It just seems to be that's when people get picked up for music.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, I've branched out doing other things. I'm working and doing production. I'm doing this radio show. I'm enjoying all of it. It's not something that I ever thought I would be doing because I was so concentrated on doing my music. That was it for me. I was like, I'm going to do my music, and that's it. But now all of these other things have happened as a result of the music, as a result of pursuing the music. I'm free to go with it at this point. I'm not constricted by a 9-to-5 job anymore, thank God. So
yeah, that'll kill you. That'll suck the lifeblood out of you.
Absolutely. I mean, I've told this story before on the show, but when I was working, I think for the 20 years I was working, I probably wrote 3 songs. And as soon as I stopped working, I wrote like 20 songs in a year.
Wow.
It's just all of that sort of stored up. I had to get my head clear of all of that crap. And once I got into a space where I could let the creative juices, if you will, flow, then the songs just started pouring out. It was amazing.
Yeah, you just took the lid off of that energetic flow. And, you since you're talking about writing music and as far as, I hate to use the word channeling. I'm channeling my spirit guides or whatever. I just pass on the information. But I've heard Mick Jagger or, I think it was Paul McCartney or many, many, many famous people, write these huge mega hits. I think Eric Clapton too. And he's like, I don't know. I woke up at 2:00 in the morning and I wrote it literally in 5 minutes, and it's like, I mean, well, okay, explain that.
Well, exactly. I mean, there is something. This is why I've said, I've never closed the door on it, but
sure,
different terminologies and things I've not necessarily been a believer of, but there is something. A lot of people, songwriters that I know, they write when they're in that sort of twilight state, like just before going to sleep. I've had songs come to me like that. I've had several songs come to me while I was driving. When your mind is sort of wandering away. I mean, you're concentrating on the road, but it puts you in a certain sort of, hypnotic state, if you will. And
it does.
Yeah.
It does. The other things driving is a wonderful example. And sometimes I'll be literally pulling weeds, or doing some sort of mindless thing and washing dishes or whatever. And it'll come. And, that's how my first book came, and I'm like, really now, and then they're like, yeah, now. So, that twilight, stage that you, said, that's a great way of saying it too. You literally, whether you're aware of it or not, have one foot in this world and one foot in the other world. when that twilight happens.
Well, let me ask you something about that. Is your dream state a reality as much as your awake state is? I mean, I've read different consciousness books and things that certain religions, Buddhism and Hindu, I think touch on that, where they talk about your awake state is essentially no different than your sleep state and your dream state. Because as far as your mind is concerned, when you're into a dream, it's real. I mean, it's as real as your reality as your wake state. The way you said it, I interpreted it as the dream state is the dead side. I mean, is that what you're saying?
Well, there is no dead.
Well, okay, I don't mean dead, but the other side, yeah.
They're just being funny. You know, they do have a great sense of humor too. So actually, when we're in the dream state, when we're in the when we're in the sleep state,
okay,
that is the closest that we come to death because we're not in a conscious state. And so what we're able to do is, number one, our judgment falls by the wayside. And we actually are, as you said, we're in another dimension. We're on the other side. We go to the other side. And so many times when people come to us who have passed, who've left the physical body, you say, well, gosh, I had this conversation with my uncle or my mom, and it was so real. And that's because it was real. And you can tell the difference is a lot of times, you know, dreams, when the subconscious is sort of filtering and just, you know, spitting out stuff throughout the day. It's very random. First there was an elephant, and then the peacock ran by, and, you know, all this kind of random stuff. That's, you know, just dreaming. But when you have a really super clear conversation with someone, and you wake up and a week later, it's still, you can remember it with such clarity. That's because it is real and it did happen, and you do leave your body in the sleep state many, many times, more often than we even know.
I have very strong dreams, and several times I've had a dream within a dream. You ever seen that movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio? And it was good. It was about...
Yes.
You ever see that? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Well, I've actually experienced that. I haven't gone down 5 levels or whatever they did in that movie, but I have gone into 2 levels where I'll be in some place, and actually I can remember it now. I was in a car lot, you know, like where they sell cars, and there were just hundreds and hundreds of cars in this huge lot. And I'm walking through, and I'm trying to find my car, because originally I went there to buy a car. And I didn't find one I liked. And the dream was a little surreal, because every time I opened a door to a car and looked in, there was just one of them was full of snakes. And the other one, the seats were growing trees inside. They'd been sitting there, but on the outside, they looked like brand new cars. So it was a little bit odd every time so I said, oh, well, forget this place. I'm not buying a car here. So I started to walk back to try to find my car that I had drove up in, and I couldn't find it. And I'm looking around and I'm looking around and I'm looking around. And then finally at that point in my brain, it said, this is a dream. I'm just in a dream. So I tried to wake myself up within the dream. I said, okay, we got to wake up now. We got to wake up.
Right.
So I woke up, but I was somewhere else. I was still in the dream, in a different dream. I just moved myself from one dream to another. And then I stayed there for a while, and then finally I woke up for real, and I remembered every bit of it. This dream was probably 6 months ago, and it's still as clear in my head as if it actually had happened.
It did.
Yeah, it was very strange.
That's fascinating. I love that movie. I think it's Inception. I think I personally would have to watch it 4 times to, really get it.
Oh, it's one of those you need to watch 4 times. Yes. Yeah. The first time I watched it, I was like, huh? Yeah.
No. But, some people say, you may have heard this, that really this so-called life, this conversation you and I are having, is a dream. And what happens at night, that's really real. And this is not.
Well, I've heard that too. as real as the dreams can be. Who's to say?
I since you're a music guy, I have to tell you this because it's a real quick story. And I
Okay.
was in commercial radio for 23 years. I did major market morning shows, and so I was a fan of still am a fan of Merle Haggard. He was coming to town, and I lived in Atlanta for a million years, and I couldn't figure out why he was playing this one venue, because he had played like really big venues in Atlanta, the Omni, and he was playing this kind of crappy venue. And I went to bed and I was thinking, why is he doing that? And so in my dream, so-called dream, I sat down with Merle Haggard and I said, Merle, I said, why are you playing this yucky ballroom venue? It's, what's up with that? And how are you supposed to make any money off of that? And he said, well, I have a sponsor, and my sponsor is, I think it was like some kind of whiskey or something at the time. And he said, I am guaranteed a certain amount of money. It doesn't matter how many 2 people show up or 2,000. That's how I make money. So I was like, oh, okay. And so I wanted to test the theory because that was a dream, right?
Yeah.
With Merle Haggard. And so the next day was record day where all the record reps come in and talk to the program director. I grabbed one of the guys that I knew, the rep, and I said, and I asked him the same question. I said, why is, Merle Haggard doing this venue? And he gave me the exact same answer. Sponsor is, blah, blah, blah whiskey, and he's guaranteed a certain rate, so he doesn't care. He still gets his 50 grand for showing up. It doesn't matter what the venue is. And I thought, okay, that's pretty weird.
That is pretty weird. You didn't happen to read that in the newspaper, like subconsciously a couple of days before, right?
Oh, no. I can still remember the conversation. I can remember it very clearly. I've gotten a lot of my answers to things in life like that. So I always wonder, I wanted to ask Merle Haggard if he had the same experience.
Well, send him an email. Maybe you'll get a reply.
Yeah.
One of the things you said that was interesting that I'm going to share, because I didn't want to share too much of my personal side because I wanted to see how much you could figure out. It's a little bit of a test. I'm sorry if I'm playing devil's advocate, but, I think there are a lot of skeptical people out there. I wouldn't say that I was a true believer, but like I said at the beginning of the show, I kept an open mind about it. I've had things happen in my life that I just couldn't figure out. Now, one of the things you said was true or is true, that when you're in that dream state, my father has passed away. He's been gone for almost 30 years. And I've never really talked about him on my show or anything because, it's called a private life for a reason. So things like that with my family and stuff, I don't really talk about. But he has been gone for a long time. Anytime I have a dream, and if he's in it, he's there. In other words, in my dream state, I could be going through that car lot and everything like I was talking about. My father isn't necessarily in the dream, but in my dream state reality, he's alive. He's never gone.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's always struck me odd. And I mean, it's been like that since, for the last 30 years. That anytime I have a dream, if my father comes into my consciousness, he doesn't always. I can have a dream every night for a month and he's never a part of it. But if there's some thought of him or some memory or whatever, it's like, oh, well, he's over there, but he's always alive. He's never dead. And that's always real interesting. I always found that to be real interesting.
Yeah. Love and loving someone, it's always interesting because it's just like a thread. And even though they leave the physical body, they're just always with us. And I always encourage people to, if they've lost someone recently, long time ago, doesn't matter, to talk to them. And so many people that I do readings with, and I said, well, you feel them around you, right? And they're like, Oh yeah, I feel them all the time. So I, they say, you may have heard this, the veil is getting thinner, so dramatic. But I wish there was a better way to say it. But it really is. And people, that weren't so aware before really are becoming more aware of this and more sensitive to these. And really what they are is energies, because that's what we are. That's what your dad is.
Right.
Dad's message to you is, if you wanted to sum it up, the guides say that, he really never left you. And as a reminder, he shows up in the so-called dream state, which I think is very cool.
It is very cool. And it's always nice when he does show up, when he's actually there. Sometimes he's hard to find, though. I mean, I can remember having dreams where that was the whole theme of the dream, if you will, was I was trying to find him. I had a question, and I couldn't find him. He was somewhere lost in the mists or something like that. But, I've had those dreams too. But he's never dead, and that's what I find interesting. And I find it interesting that you said that. So I'm going to hit one of your bullet points here on your bio, where it said, become your own psychic. How do you do that?
It's so interesting. So many of the things that you've said, and there's nothing wrong with being skeptical. I'm not insulted by it. I think people should be skeptical. A good dose of it is okay. But you're a lot more sensitive than you even know, because here you are having communication with your dad. By the way, before I answer that question, if you want more clarity with dad, all you have to do before you go to sleep is ask him, say, hey, Dad, I'll meet you over on, the couch or our old house that I grew up in, or someplace familiar to both of you. And they're more than happy to meet up with you in that dream state. And so it really is becoming your own psychic, is really acknowledging the sensitivities. Meditation is good, even if it's just 15 minutes a day. The definition of meditation is really just quieting your mind, stopping the grind, the incessant grind, If you can't do that, listen to a guided meditation, So in order for you to listen to your spirit guides, your angels, those who have passed, you've got to first be quiet, so you can listen. So something that gives you pleasure, maybe it is pulling weeds. I kind of like pulling weeds, and it is kind of thoughtless, it's just mindless. And so that's how one way I might quiet my mind. So when you start putting all these pieces together, the experiences that you've had, Douglas, in your dream state, those are very psychic experiences. Those are dealing with the other side. Those are dealing with energies, people who've passed, all of those sorts of things. And so when you start stringing it all together and become aware of it and start, I hate to say working on your awareness, but, bringing it into your consciousness, you'll get more and more sensitive. And I'll tell you, as a psychic, as a working psychic and a medium, a lot of people come to me for validation. A lot of times I'm not telling them anything new. They just want to make sure that it's just not their mind that's spitting out this information, that it really is true. And it is.
One of the things that you were talking about quieting your mind, there's different religions have had different takes on that. The one that I particularly liked was the mantras. And,
yes.
That kind of transcendental meditation. I've always been interested in that. I've always, being a Beatles fan, when they went in the 60s and it was all, it was very well documented what they were doing. But a lot of that kind of followed them, throughout their later life, especially George Harrison, who got real big into the whole Indian thing. And I've been able to do that, to a certain point, where rather than having my mind going in 25 different directions, I'll just concentrate on one sort of saying, going over and over. In terms of a physical activity, this is going to sound funny, but one of the times that I get the most relaxed and calm in my mind is playing slot machines at a casino. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Being in Vegas, it's easy to find a slot machine. But just to
Sure.
what I like to do is I like to go into the casino at about 2 a.m. on a weekday when there's nobody in there, and find a game that I like and sit way in the corner and just play. And honestly, after an hour or 2 hours, I feel much better. I do feel better if I win, but
Yeah.
but just the whole process of it. So when I started doing that, a friend of mine said, well, if you want to save a few bucks, you can just do it online for points. It doesn't cost you anything. So I went online to this site that has like all of the Vegas slot machines just copied online, and you just play for free, and you just sit there and spin and spin and spin. And that is a very good way for me to sort of clear my mind, is to just watch those things spinning round and round. Yeah, the reels. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It's funny because we live in New Mexico. We probably for the last 5 years I have friends there, but we go to Vegas, at least twice a year,
Yeah, you're not that far. Yeah, you're a day's drive or so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, because that's like one of our favorite things to do is to play the slot machines. And unfortunately, my husband has like this incredible luck. It's just wild for winning, I'm like, wow, how'd you do that? But I understand like the sort of, it's interesting, the different ways how you can quiet your mind or distract your mind for that quietness.
Yeah, I mean, music will do it too, to a certain point, but it needs to be something away from that. Like, I can play a song on the piano and sing a song that I've done 1,000 times. So it's all sort of muscular memory as far as actually performing it. But I think that's like the old way that I used to do it. It doesn't work as well as other things that I do now. It used to, but I think I've worn it out because it just, it doesn't get me there as much anymore.
Yeah, I think you kind of move on and grow out of things though too.
Yeah, because I've been playing piano since I was like 3 years old. I mean, that was,
wow.
I started very young, and music has always been a part of me. It'll never go away, but it just doesn't quite get me there anymore, Is there anything you can tell me about my father?
Well, he keeps showing up in my mind because the guides also talk to me in pictures, because that really says so much more than words. And he keeps showing up in these sort of khaki pants that are sort of high-waisted, and a short sleeve shirt, and he's trim, and he looks to be like about 28 years old. And I don't know if that's how he shows up to you, but that's how he shows up to me. And they're saying when he shows up, they're kind of wagging their finger at you because of your skepticism, but it's all in good fun. That isn't he always the same age in your dreams?
He's about the age he was when he died. Okay. He was a lot older than 28 when he died, but I have seen pictures of him when he was 28, and he did sort of look like that. But he always looks to me like when I last saw him. That's how he looks when I see him in my dreams. I don't see him at 28 because I wasn't even born yet.
Right, but he's talking about pictures, like old black and white pictures of himself. And he says those were much happier times. No offense to your mom or anything. I don't know if they had just gotten married, but he was young, and there wasn't so many things piled on his shoulders. Responsibility and obligation. They feel like anchors. They feel like weights that weighted him down, physically, mentally, and spiritually in life as his life went on. And he talks a little bit about regret and remorse. One of the biggest regrets is that he wasn't there, in the physical for you. He tries his hardest. That's why, to be there for you in the dream state. And he also acknowledges it's not the same. It's the tip of the iceberg, he says, So, but he comes through very light, and he just keeps going back to those younger days. He really enjoyed those. It seems that as he got a little older, not so terribly happy.
Well, that's probably true. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know him when he was young, so it's hard for me to confirm or deny that. But
right,
I would say that's probably true. Yeah. My dad definitely had a better mind, in the sense that he would spend hours and hours reading about some topic that intrigued him, where my mother has no patience at all, and if she can't figure something out in 5 minutes, it's gone. She just won't deal with it,
Yeah.
So, well, opposites attract, I guess. Maybe that's what made them a good couple. But I always gravitated more towards my father because he was somebody that I could really talk to.
Yeah, the energy energetically, they're so different. They're just such different people.
Yeah, that's true.
But like at the other, she's at one end of the spectrum, he's at the other end of the spectrum, So, but it seemed to have served its purpose for, whatever reasons they came together for.
Yeah, which I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know that much about it. It really was never something that was talked about. So,
yeah.
Listen, we have run out of time. We've got to cut this off. I'm sorry that we have to, because this has been a really interesting conversation. Can you please give us your website, whichever one you want to send people to, so they can have a look and maybe they'll get in contact you to have a reading or something?
Sure. My website is my name, lornaadams.com. It's LORNA Adams, ADAMS.com. And probably more information and articles that I've written and channeled than you want. You can find it all there. And of course, all the contact info is there. LornaAdams.com.
LornaAdams.com. Now, did you say you had a book out, or you wrote a book?
I do. I'm working on my second book right now. I wrote this little book about 4 years ago. It's called "They Are With Us: Advice from Spirit on Changing Your Life."
Okay.
And they wrote it. I typed it.
Well, that's interesting. Now, is that book available through your website? Is there a link to Amazon or somewhere?
There is a link, and it's all over Amazon. You can download it on Kindle. It's also in the, I put it in the lending library to hopefully be of service to someone. So, and that's the main reason I wrote it, just really to be of service. So sometimes I go on there and just offer it for free. Just to.
You said you're writing a second book. What is your second book about?
My second book is really me writing it, and it's really about big life lessons. It's about stories that I've experienced with clients, and all the names have been changed. But it's really interesting, fascinating stories, and the fascinating things that happen during readings, and things that people learn that guides come in to teach, stuff that I've learned, and it's going to be a fun read. It's fun. It's interesting. It's relatable. It's stuff that we all experience, loss and happy things. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun to write.
I guess the last question I want to ask you, and then we've got to go, is have you ever missed, have you ever been doing a reading with somebody that you just completely got wrong? Has that ever happened?
I can't say that. I can say that once in a very blue moon, the guides will say, no, this person is not ready for this information. And I will just have to pass it on and say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. That's probably happened in 10 years, maybe twice. Yeah, I just pass on the information. It's not my job to edit it or make you feel warm and fuzzy. The information, again, is for your highest good, and I just pass it on. That's the honest and, thing to do. So that's what I do.
Okay. Well, Lorna, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. And good luck with your books, and good luck with all of your other endeavors, your psychic readings. I hope you bring some people some comfort knowing that there is another side, or the other side, if you will.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my very special guest, Lorna Adams. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.